Imagine you've never heard about Jesus, and you looked at the crucifix, the one right here. What would come to mind? Death, right? Maybe you would feel sorry for the guy, that he suffered such a death. Public humiliation, tremendous suffering. But for us who know the story, it's a symbol of life. As today's gospel reminds us, the Son of Man must be lifted up. So for us, this is a symbol of love. This is a symbol of new life. This is a promise of eternal life and a reminder of God's love for us. I'm going to tell you a story. And at a surface level, it's a very sad story. It's the story of my sister-in-law. So this is a real story, as real as it gets. She was diagnosed in 2013 with ovarian cancer. In 2014, in March, she was told that there's nothing else they can do for her. And she died in July of 2014. A lot of suffering there. First of all, through the treatment, cancer treatment, she had to be isolated a number of times. You know, when her children could not then come and visit her, when her family could not visit her. Also, tremendous suffering because, she had to let go of all the hopes and dreams she had for her children, for their home they just finished, for grandchildren, and hopes of retirement, and hopes of vacation. Finally, they have their home, they have no debt, they can live. And all of that was gone. With the simple, words of the doctor, there's nothing else we can do for you. But there is a beautiful story right underneath that surface. Like a beautiful story behind the cross. There's a beautiful story behind my sister-in-law's suffering and death. Her name is Teresa, by the way. My brother was not a nice person. He was my oldest brother. I'm number 6. I remember him a little bit growing up. There's 18 years difference between us. But, even in marriage, he was not a nice husband. They struggled. They struggled to build a good marriage. They struggled to build a good family. And he struggled as an individual to be kind and gentle and loving and caring. But with my sister's illness, with my sister-in-law's cancer, that transformed him. When I went in that year, 2014, in March, to visit my sister-in-law and spend some time with them, I could not recognize my brother. At that point, she was unable to take care of herself. He was feeding her. He was giving her drink. He was bathing her, taking her to the bathroom, doing laundry and cooking. He learned how to give shots. He learned how to aspirate her lungs. He learned all that stuff because he didn't want anyone else to care for his wife. I'm getting a little bit more emotional, but that's what happened. This guy that couldn't care less about anyone became this most loving and caring person I've pretty much ever encountered in my family. So I know that her cross and suffering led to tremendous conversion in my brother. And if he ever gets to heaven, it will be because of her and because of that suffering. Jesus' cross was not blessing for him. That suffering was not anything pleasant. It was not blessing for him, but it's blessing for us. Like the suffering of my sister-in-law was nothing pleasant, but became such a tremendous blessing for my brother. And the story goes further. And in those last 3 or 4 months that she had with her 3 daughters, it seems to me that she was able to live out all those years that will be missing out. Each and every day became this very powerful experience of mother-daughter. There was struggling there, yes. There were fights. There were a lot of anger about what's happening, with them. But at the same time, it was a profound sense that this is the time we have. We will not have other time. This is it. How often, do we waste time with one another, taking it for granted? So this was another blessing for them and for my family. We learned that we can't take one another for granted, and we can't take the time that we have with one another for granted. But that lesson for us, came from my sister-in-law's suffering. Many times in our lives we encounter profound suffering. Cancer, perhaps depression, perhaps betrayal, and so on. You all know, especially those of you who are suffering, and you know how isolating suffering is. You don't feel connected to others when you suffer. Jesus being lifted up on the cross, it's not only that you can see, but also it was to isolate him from his friends and family that could no longer reach and comfort him, being hanged on the cross, away from everybody's reach. That's what suffering does to us. It separates us from one another, and it's a very lonely experience. So to all of you who are going through that time, connect yourself with Christ, because he knows firsthand what it means to suffer. And offer that suffering for your family. Ask God to turn your suffering into a blessing for your family, for a blessing to the world.